is Quentin from ServiceNow. I'm part of the automation engine team within the solution consulting organization at ServiceNow. Oftentimes I get requests from customers that want to understand what's consuming the IntegrationHub transaction within their instance. As you understand, at the time I'm recording this, we are in November 2023. Things can change, but at the time I'm recording this in November 2023, we are charging customer per transaction. It means when they are entitled to IntegrationHub, they purchase a number of transactions, a pack of transactions. I think the minimum is 1 million for IntegrationHub Pro. Don't quote me on this. 1 million of transactions. So before I go and show the visibility, how you can understand what's consuming those transactions in your environment, it's good to define what it is a transaction from an IntegrationHub perspective. Always refer to your contract. There is legal document that explain your entitlement and how we count those transactions. But at a high level, an IntegrationHub transaction is defined as any outbound call originating from IntegrationHub, Flow Designer, remote tables, and an orchestration. This includes any operation, action, orchestration from IntegrationHub, remote tables, or orchestration resulting in an outbound call. So any outbound call from your instance, from IntegrationHub, Flow Designer, remote table, and orchestration, legacy orchestration. Outbound meaning something coming out of your instance to go in an external system. If you're making a call to ServiceNow, to a ServiceNow API, this is an inbound. So this is not part of the transaction usage. So transaction in outbound, generated from the instance to the outside. I just wanted to clarify this. So now the question we get from customers, and okay, I've consumed, let's say, 500,000 transactions for the year or for the month. How do I know which workflow is consuming those transactions, right? Which spokes actually consume those transactions? Spokes are integration that you can build in IntegrationHub, or the one we provide out of the box. And those spokes have a set of actions which are could make call. They have steps that could make call outside of the instance. So you want to understand, okay, what are the workflow making those calls? What are the spokes I'm using to consume? What it is consuming my transaction for IntegrationHub? So the place you need to go is IntegrationHub usage dashboard, the IntegrationHub usage dashboard on your instance. You open it, and there's a few tabs depending on the version that you are. I'm on a demo instance, so some may be empty, but you can see the transaction count and different data. I've filled the spokes. The spokes tab is probably more relevant for the discussion here. I can right away see what it is my top spokes. So what it is a set of transactions that are the set of action or spoke action that are consuming the most transaction. So here you can see the most is visitor access. And because I'm a developer on that instance, I know what it is exactly. I've created a spoke for a particular use case on which within that spoke I have action that leveraging REST API step. But now I can say that's the one that's consuming the most transaction from a licensing perspective, because I can see the spokes in there. So see, I've activated the generative AI controller spokes. It's configured, and I have a bunch of workflow from time to time that I'm using for demo that are making using transaction, making outbound call to Azure OpenAI for that particular. But if it's a leadership person, someone who's platform owner, he may not know the detail of which workflow is consuming what, but he's asking you to answer those questions. Hey, we're going to pay the bill to ServiceNow. We charge for 500,000 or 1 million transactions. Let's review the workflow that are consuming those. Are we still using them? Yes or no? So first thing, spokes, you go in spokes and you can see what spokes is consuming. For most organizations, I'm assuming maybe it could be Active Directory integration, Microsoft Teams. Those are consuming a lot of transactions. If you have configured those integration between the two platforms, it makes sense if all of your employees are leveraging ServiceNow, maybe those will generate transaction. So let's click on visitor access to dive into this. Now you can see the Spoke ID there, and I can see that there is a caller scope. Your ServiceNow developers on your instance, when they build workflows, the workflow should not be in a global scope. The workflow that they build should be in a particular scoped app. I know most of the customers, they still do everything in global, but that's not what we want. That's not the best practice. Typically here, you should see the caller scope. So it could be an application that you've developed for a specific use case. And within that scoped app, there is a workflow that's leveraging my Spoke. Here I have a custom app that I've created. And within that scoped app, there is a bunch of workflow that's leveraging, as you can see, those REST protocol, the REST, and I can see there's 7,000 count. So it means I'm using 7,279 transactions just for that particular scope. Now, if you don't respect the best practice and you do everything in global and you have 1,000 of workflows leveraging 1,000 of spokes, it's going to be hard to track things. That's why we want customer to create their development in dedicated scoped app per use case, per feature that you want to release on the instance. So here I know there's two scoped app, this one and the naming convention is not great, but I can see that something within that scope is generating, consuming those transactions. So I don't think you can dive directly from that IntegrationHub dashboard to understand what it is the workflow, but I'm going to be showing to you. Know that you know this is your number one consumer for transaction. Maybe you go back. You go back to the report. I'm going to try to go back to the main report. You can dive into what protocol exactly we're using. So I'm going to double click in there. You can see mostly this is a REST protocol. If I go back to my 7,000, I know we're using the REST protocol. So I know there is workflow that someone has built with custom action or action that are leveraging the REST step. The REST step is making those outbound calls, and you are getting charged by ServiceNow for those because it's making an outbound call from the instance. Let's see. I don't think we show any preview there. We do show actually. So we can see the action type, right? You can see some detail, the scope. And now you can literally see the name of the IntegrationHub action. So this is very meaningful information because now that you drill down into, do you have the scope? I'm drilling down, I'm taking the entry that has the biggest number of transactions, I'm drilling down into that record. And if I scroll down, I can see the artifact ID. I know we could probably display it a better way. I have some announcement requests to the product team to make it better. But currently, that's how I will do if I want to really understand who is consuming those transactions. So here you can see there's an action step in that scope, and I can see the action, the generating the 7,000 transaction is this one, monitor visitor access API. It's a custom action. I know this one because I've built that Spoke action specifically. If I click on the I don't think I can get more detail, but I'm going to show you. If my management is asking me, okay, Quentin, you consuming too much transaction for that action step. Now, if I want to see, okay, what soft flow and flow are consuming this, I can go straight in Flow Designer. And I'll show you another way maybe to report. If you want to create some reports, I can show you some tables. So if you are in Flow Designer, because now you've pinpoint which action is generating the most, using the most transaction, you can go in action, find by name, because you have copied the name, it's monitor visitor API access. So that's an action, IntegrationHub action that's making API call. And this, I know it because I've seen it in the IntegrationHub usage dashboard. But what I want to try to answer, showing you in Flow Designer, is once I know exactly which Spoke action is consuming all my transaction, I can go and open it, and I can see what it does. Obviously, I've built this, so I know exactly what it does, but that's not the point. And you can click here, see related flow. And now this is where it's interesting. I think I can see there's two workflow that are actually making and leveraging the Spoke action. They are the one making those, using those transactions. So in real life, you may have 10 different workflows, and you can now inspect them and see which flow is using the most transaction or using that action. So here I can see only one is active. So now I know if I click on that workflow, I can tell to my management, this is a workflow that one of our developers is using, and I can see we may need to revisit the way we're making those calls, because here we have a scheduled workflow that making API call every 5 minutes. So of course we're going to be generating and consuming a lot of transaction from a licensing perspective. Maybe someone took a little shortcut, developed a quick flow and forgot about it. And now we have this thing maybe running every 2 seconds and consuming hundreds of thousands of transactions that you have to pay for. So to recap, I was showing to you how using the IntegrationHub usage dashboard, how you can pinpoint what spokes and spoke action are consuming the most transaction from a licensing perspective. Once you have identified the specific action, you can open in Flow Designer like I did. You can open the action, understand what protocol is actually consuming here. It's a REST step, but it could be a web service call. It doesn't have to be a REST. Any outbound call, if it's a JDBC call, it's going to be also counting. We're going to count it as a transaction as well. I went to see related flow, and I was able to list the flows or subflows that are consuming or using that spoke action. And now I can actually go to this one and say, okay, yes, we have a scheduled workflow. It's a repeat every 5 minutes, and it's leveraging that particular spoke. So that's what's generating my 7,000 transaction. So I believe with this, you have everything you need to really understand how you consume your transaction. As I was saying, I'm hoping we can add a flow tab there in the future. So I've submitted an enhancement request internally within ServiceNow to have a tab so we can actually display literally right away the flow and subflows for a particular scope and particular action. But that's not there right today. But you can see a lot of information already. And with this, with a combination of Flow Designer, you can then pinpoint what flows and subflows are using that action. So I believe you have all the tools in your hand to really understand how you consume those transactions. So I hope that was useful. And if you have any question, you can reach out to your account team. They will know how to track me. Bye.